Hello YouTube friends, Ben Ochart here. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you watched the last live stream, you know I promised you some tips on how to avoid a tank shattering or leaks and things of that nature. And that was based on a survey that occurred at the Ben O'Cichlid Facebook group page. And in that survey, the number one concern that fish keepers seemed to have was a tank cracking, leaking, flooding their floor, or having some sort of tank devastation, you know, some cataclysmic sort of event where the tank would shatter, and especially if they were not home and water was spilling everywhere. So what I did is I've come up with a couple tips to help you avoid that, and that number one fear that came up in that survey. So let's go ahead and get right underway. So looking back on a video I released recently about being level, certainly if you have a tank that is out of level, and that can occur for a variety of reasons. Perhaps the stand has shifted over time. Maybe it's with humidity and changes in using your heater more, or perhaps in different seasons, wood can change its shape a little bit and your tank can go out of level. And if you have a glass tank, those seams and the adhesives that hold the tank together can start to stretch or be stressed unevenly, because the water is putting, if it's, let's say the tank is a little bit low on this side, the seams on this side are going to have more pressure and are not going to be evenly distributed. The pressure is not going to be evenly distributed, and you're going to have a little bit of a torque going on, a pull, you know, this way or that way, you know, some type of torsion or torque going on, and that's going to stretch the adhesives or the silicone that's holding your tank together, and that can create a burst. So I gave one tip on how to do it, on how to level a tank. Certainly there are more ways to do it, but check out, next time you do a water change, check out how the water is coming up in your tank. And if you notice, like I did, that one side of the tank is a little bit lower than the other. The water is getting to the top of the right side, in my case, before it would reach the top of the left side. Then you have a tank that's out of level, and you need to raise it on one side. You can use the shims that I talked about in that prior video, or you can come up with perhaps reducing the water level in the tank, jacking that stand up a little bit, and putting other things under there to help raise that side. Sometimes floors can start to, can get a little warped over time, especially if they're wood, and foundations in homes can shift. There's a lot of reasons why that can happen, but try and keep your tanks level. That's tip number one, is keep your tanks as level as you can. Tip number two, if you're using heavy rocks, chances are one of these days that rock is going to slip out of your hand, and if it hits the outside of your tank with the water pressure contributing to the impact, keep in mind there's a lot of outward pressure, and then you put the pressure of that rock hitting the side of the tank, you might have a burst. And if that occurs, if you get a bad crack or a burst, you've got a real problem. So my advice, if you want to use very, very large rocks, is to be very, very careful. Take your time. Never rearrange decor in a hurried fashion. And if you can, if it appeals to you, use rocks like this that are synthetic, but yet look pretty decent. This rock, after it's been in the tank for a while and it starts to get a little bit of algae and other things on it, it's going to look really, really good. And as you can see, it's just a good looking rock. And if you drop it, this thing doesn't weigh anything. It's just a light synthetic rock, and you're much safer with a rock this size that's synthetic. I picked this one up from Universal Rocks back when Jay Wilson was working with them. I believe this is one that he actually was nice enough to give to me. So synthetic rocks that are lightweight will certainly help. And if you have a glass tank, you're more at risk. I think an acrylic tank, if you hit the side, you're probably going to get a scratch, but you're not going to get a shatter. you're more likely to get that kind of a result with a glass tank. And one last tip, my third tip for you is if you do have heavy rocks and decor, consider getting a hold of some of this material. This is what you would call a fluorescent ceiling light diffuser. You can find these on eBay and at large box and also small hardware stores. And you can cut them. I use them for tank dividers. I use them, you've seen me use these for a variety of reasons and purposes. You can also put them underneath the substrate so that it's completely hidden, you can't see it, and it will distribute the weight of heavy rocks in your tank. So even if you drop the rock and it hits this, it'll have a little bit of a buffer that distributes the impact over a wider area as opposed to a point of impact. Because if you have a crack or a shatter on the bottom of your tank, you're done. You're done. You're just going to watch your tank drain. There's not much you can do about it. So, and if you don't have a tub available, really available quickly, or a bucket that you can put those fish in, you're going to lose all your stock. I mean, it's really that simple. So I'm not trying to alarm you, but those are the 3 tips that I suggest for anyone who's trying to avoid the disaster, the #1 disaster in the survey that I conducted at the Ben O. Cichlid Facebook group, the survey on our greatest fear as a fish keeper. #2, but way down in number of votes, was disease. Disease wiping out our stock, something like that happening while we're away, or a disease that takes hold very quickly and wipes out a large number of fish. That was #2 in the survey, and so there you have it. I hope those tips come in handy, and thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to, if you like the video, be sure to hit that like button and hit the bell so that you do get notices when I post. And stop by the Ben O. Cichlid Facebook group page if you care to, and also follow on Instagram at ben.o.cichlid, and come by on Saturdays for a live stream, Saturday mornings, usually at 10 a.m., sometimes earlier, the Cichlids and Coffee live stream. We have a lot of fun there. I love answering your questions directly, and we get into some interesting topics, and we get some interesting conversations going on in the chat that goes along with the live stream. So I enjoy reading those afterwards. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care. You rock, my friend, and hope to see you again soon. Bye.